to
Good
have you on the
morning.
podcast.
Good morning, Ayo. Thank you for having me.
All right. For our listeners out there, just to let you know, you can be a part of the conversation this morning by sending your messages to us via WhatsApp on 0809 444 We're also streaming live on YouTube. That's at Smooth 981 FM Lagos. All right, Kelvin, let's get right into it. Now, we have a report from the International Energy Agency, that's the IEA, the International Renewable Energy Agency, the IRENA, or IRENA as I call it sometimes, the United Nations and the World Health Organization, which says that Nigeria has 86 million people living without electricity. Is this an infrastructure problem? Is it a leadership problem? Or is it even both of them combined?
Well, the problem in the power sector is multifaceted, but there is a central theme that experts in the industry all agree on, and that's the fact that there is a lack of cost-reflective tariff. You see, I think we had this conversation before, and I mentioned that there are three major subsidies that is holding the Nigerian economy back. There is the fuel subsidy, which is now history. It is gone for good, which I support the removal of. There is the FX subsidy that costs the Nigerian government about 270 to 284 billion naira monthly. And there is the power subsidy. So you see, when people request from M or from A, for example, PTA, BTA to travel, and they think, oh, they get a discount from the government, somebody is paying for it, of course. There is a power subsidy. Power subsidy happens through Nigerian Bulk Electricity Trading Company, MBET.
Okay.
The government basically covers shortfall, what they call tariff shortfall in their. So the GENCOs, when they supply electricity to the national grid, TCN, they produce what they call the final settlement statement, FSS. That's like their invoice. Whatever part of that load that is taken by the DISCO from the market operator, which is TCN, and is not fully paid. And usually, if you look at the historical tariff shortfall, there is a 30% impairment, which means that the DISCOs only are able to pay between 65 and 70% of the invoice that are sent. And the fact that there is a 30% impairment over a long period of time has led to debts of about 1.3 trillion naira owed to the generating companies.
That is a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
So because of this, the GENCOs are like, we don't have any incentive to generate more electricity and add to the grid, because we notice that you don't even take all the electricity we add to the grid. So there's an issue of shortage of gas, LPFO that is used by the generating companies to power their turbines. There is the issue of the debts that is being owed by the DISCOs. And you see that a lot of the DISCOs are failing. Can Group, that was running in Abuja Electricity Distribution Company, they went into administration because they couldn't service their debts to UBA. UBA took over the company, and the government approved that UBA can transfer the assets of AEDC to Transcorp Power. Transcorp Power now runs Abuja Electricity Distribution Company. Kaduna Electric also had issues, debts of about 51 billion, if I'm not mistaken. I heard that IBDC, but an electricity distribution company, is also in trouble. And because when this process was done by the Bureau of Public Enterprise more than 10 years ago, they didn't go through the process thoroughly to ensure that the companies had the financial capacity to be able to manage their operations. So you discover that a lot of them were running on debt, and those debts are not sustainable because of legacy issues of them not being able to recover. The penetration for prepaid meters in Nigeria is 38%, which is very low. So there's a lot of electricity theft in the country, which is one reason why they are unable to meet up. There's also the problem of lack of cost-reflective tariff, right? Which is another reason why they are unable to meet up. So if you compare the prices of electricity per unit per kilowatt in Nigeria to what you have in other parts of the world, you discover that Nigeria is about 35 to 40%. Yeah. But if you raise the prices, of course, the people are going to protest. NLC is going to say they're going on strike. These are the issues. I'm not saying that, look, the people don't have a point, but I'm saying that, look, we don't have cost reflective tariff. So there's no incentive for private investors to put money in to raise generating capacity or to add infrastructure that is required to be able to take more load and ensure that the amount of electricity that Nigerians get on a daily basis is higher than what it is today. Look, the whole of Lagos generates less than 1,000 megawatts. The whole of Lagos. Dangote built a generating capacity of 435 megawatts, and the whole of Lagos generates less than 1,000 megawatts.
That is mind-boggling.
And for 20 million people in Lagos, less than 1,000 megawatts. Over a period of 60-something years, less than 1,000 megawatts. Dangote in less than 7 years built 435. In less than 7 years, he built half of the capacity that the whole of Lagos needs. Now that electricity bill number 33 is now on the concurrent legislative list, what is going to happen is that, because definitely Dangote refinery cannot use all of 435 megawatts, it's going to end up selling excess capacity to the state grid. States are going to end up setting up, Lagos to set up a state electricity board. Lagos will manage its own generation through IPPs, independent power plants. It's going to manage, you're going to work with TCN. I'm not exactly clear on the structure if TCN is going to be decentralized from the 9 workstations they currently have into regional or state grids. And, IKEDC, EKEDC, you need to increase the penetration of prepaid meters in Lagos.
Speaking of penetration, Kelvin, that's exactly what did you say on WhatsApp. He's saying they should embark on a massive prepaid meter distribution in order to help themselves.
So the problem with prepaid meters is, look, they're exposed to the US dollar because most of the parts for the prepaid meter that is assembled is imported. So the FX rate affects it. There's also a shortage of prepaid meters. There's also the problem of the cost of the prepaid meters. And what I've suggested in some policy documents I've written is, listen, you guys can actually set up a credit system where if people cannot pay for the prepaid meter, you give it to them on credit. And then you amortize the cost of the prepaid meter over a period of time. So if the prepaid meter, for example, is going to cost you 120,000 for maybe 2-phase or 3-phase, you can give it on credit, maybe with a 10% down payment, and the remaining 90% you amortize over a period of 12 months. So the person, when they buy units, they know, they are aware that
they're also paying for
their prepaid meter. Every month, 10,000 naira will be factored into the units that they buy. Simple. At the end of 12 months, they amortize it and they're on prepaid. That way, there's no electricity theft because it's whatever you buy that you use.
All right, Kelvin. Let's now looking deeper at this report. 80% of the world's population that lack electricity reside in sub-Saharan Africa, a whopping 80%. Now, in terms of economic metrics, is sub-Saharan Africa, the most unfortunate region in the world, or is this a man-made problem, quote unquote?
The problem with sub-Saharan Africa is a problem of Nigeria, because Nigeria is the most populous nation in sub-Saharan Africa. And for me, it's the problem of lack of industrialization and backward integration, okay? Because when you look at electricity, look at Ghana, for example. Ghana gets the gas that it uses for electricity from Nigeria. Price of gas has gone up. You see that the Ghana of 10, 15 years ago is not the Ghana of today. Back in the day when I used to travel to Accra for business, you had big hotels like Protea that used to run without electricity. Without generator. You won't see any generator blaring like you have in Lagos. There's electricity, stable electricity. A whole hotel like that actually is powered by electricity, and they don't bother about generator. So look, the problem is, do you get gas? Do you get low poor fuel oil? Do you have the transmission capacity? Do you have penetration for prepaid? These are the issues that you need to tackle. The problem is as alive in Nigeria, as alive in Gambia, in Senegal, in Cameroon, in Ghana, in Togo. These are the issues they have.
These are the issues. All right. Now, Kelvin, do we need another privatization exercise in Nigeria's power sector?
If you want to go on another privatization exercise, it's going to come with legal issues. The government is going to have to fight cases in court because there are existing agreements that has been signed. What the government can do is use the default of the current participants in the sector as a legal way to wrestle control from companies that it knows cannot manage and historically has failed to keep up to agreements. If they default in the agreements they signed in that privatization clause with the government can use that as a way to wrestle control over them to companies that actually has the financial and technical capacity and wherewithal to manage the process. That's what I think they should do. But if they deliberately embark on, seizing control, they are going to be fraught with a lot of legal issues that they might not win in court.
That's actually very good information to have. Now, we have a new government in power, and obviously the power sector is one sector that they'll have to focus a lot of attention on. Can any progress be made on power in Nigeria over the next 4 years?
Progress can be made. I believe progress can be made, and the first focus for me should be for the government to focus on gas, building and completing AKK, Ajaokuta, Kaduna, and Kano pipelines currently in Abuja. They need to build it up to Kano because the North Central and the Northwest has an issue of supply of gas. We need to pay attention to that so that they can increase penetration. The government also has to increase the number of pipes, the distance of pipelines in Nigeria, which is about 1,000 kilometers. They need about 5,000 kilometers to be able to raise generation to up to 25,000 megawatts, So if you focus on gas, if you focus on transiting Nigeria from federal to state in terms of electricity, set up state electricity board, decentralize the grid, and have the Nigerian Governors Forum work with the generating companies to settle that 1.3 trillion legacy debts in that their historical tariff shortfall, you're going to begin to address the issues, the legacy issues and the pain points that are required to raise generating capacity to somewhere around 15,000 megawatts and be able to, ensure that people get at least 12 to 15 hours of stable electricity per day, depending on the ability to pay, by the way.
All right. Now, speaking of depending on ability to pay, I'll just take one more message before we round up on Business Express. This is from Ayodele, and Ayodele says the electricity distribution companies blame their debt on customers not paying for the service they consume. Now, IBEDC in particular, in their statement a few weeks ago, when Nigeria went through long power cuts that lasted days. Now, that creates a clog with income generation, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mentioned this earlier, and this is the reason why you have to raise penetration of prepaid meters from 38% to at least 70%. And I suggested earlier that the way to address that, right, is ensure that customers can amortize the cost of the prepaid meters over the course of a period of time and not just leave them to, oh, you must buy it and pay immediately. Being able to buy now and pay later, the BNPL model, is a good way to tackle that problem.
All right. I really hope that the new government can actually look into that, because 38% really not good enough at all. All right, that's all we can take on Business Express this morning. Thank you so much, Kelvin, for joining me. Kelvin Emmanuel is the CEO of Dairy Hills Limited, and we've been talking about getting electricity to 86 million Nigerians. Do have yourself a great day, Kelvin, and it's great to have you always.
Thank you, Ayo. Have a great day too.
All right, cheers.